Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating intersection where ancient, deeply rooted devotion literally collides with cutting-edge urban engineering. We're heading to Ujjain, an ancient spiritual epicenter right in the heart of central India. For centuries, this city has drawn just massive, unbelievable crowds. But today, we're going to see exactly how it's using modern science, crowd psychology, and mega infrastructure to not just survive those millions of visitors, but to actively thrive.
To really set the stage, listen to this terrifying reality from the science of crowds. When crowd density equals the plan area of the human body, individual control is lost, as one becomes an involuntary part of the mass. I want you to keep that quote in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer. Think about that for a second. It perfectly captures the sheer logistical and physical nightmare of managing millions of pilgrims. We aren't just talking about a bad traffic jam here. We're talking about the fluid dynamics of human bodies and the incredible, high-stakes science required to keep everyone safe.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. We'll look at the ancient spiritual epicenter itself. 2. How they're physically expanding the sacred space. 3. The actual science of crowds. And 4. The massive effort to rejuvenate the river Kshipra. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The ancient spiritual epicenter, the heart of devotion.
To really grasp why these modern solutions are absolutely crucial, you've got to understand the unparalleled spiritual gravity of this place. Ujjain is one of India's oldest continuously inhabited cities, going all the way back to at least the 4th century BC. It's home to the Mahakaleshwar Jyotirlinga, which is incredibly unique. It's the only one of the 12 Jyotirlingas that faces south, a direction deeply tied to the Lord of Time and Death. Because of that, it's considered a place of ultimate spiritual liberation. And wow, do the numbers reflect that. During the Simhasta Kumbh Mela, which happens every 12 years, this city draws anywhere from 70 to 120 million people. That's like the entire population of a large country showing up in one city. Even on a normal day, tens of thousands pour in. The sheer magnetic pull of this geography is staggering.
And the temple itself is a masterclass in sheer resilience. Just look at this timeline. It was renovated in the 11th century, faced complete destruction by invaders in the 13th century, but then was stubbornly, beautifully rebuilt in 1734 by the Maratha ruler Ranoji Shinde. It's a living, breathing testament to survival. But survival today means adapting to modern, mega population sizes.
Which brings us to Part 2, expanding the sacred space, the Mahakaal Corridor project.
So how do you handle the modern pressure of 1.5 to 3 crore, that's 15 to 30 million visitors a year? You launch a 351 crore rupee project called the Mahakaal Corridor. And the scale of this intervention is mind-blowing. For centuries, this massive influx of humanity was squeezed into a tiny temple area of just 2.82 hectares. Now, they're expanding it to nearly 47 hectares. They aren't just laying down a few extra walkways. They are fundamentally rewriting the spatial geometry of the entire area to create a massive pressure release valve for all this human devotion.
What does that actually look like on the ground? Well, picture massive new holding areas, a new visitor plaza that can hold 20,000 pilgrims at a single time, which stops that dangerous buildup of crowds right at the temple gates. They've built a 900-meter pedestrian corridor, decked out with 108 grand pillars and 76 huge sculptures. So they are literally engineering physical space to absorb these swelling tides of devotion, turning what used to be a cramped, dangerous wait into a spacious, really enriching journey.
But here's the real kicker. This isn't just about beautiful architecture. It's highly calculated. When you look at the layout of the temple premises, you're looking at a meticulously mapped blueprint designed specifically to prevent deadly bottlenecks. Every entrance, every ramp, every single exit is mapped out. They use multi-entry and exit points, completely remove architectural dead ends, and rely on circuitous pathways to keep people moving. But, as we know, physical space is really only half the battle.
Let's move on to Part 3, the science of crowds, preventing the crush.
Because here's the thing, physical space alone does not stop a stampede. If people panic, a wide-open plaza can become just as dangerous as a narrow hallway. That's why authorities here train their staff not just in crowd control, which implies using force, but in crowd management, which implies psychology and flow. They're guided by a really fascinating model known as the FIST principle. FIST stands for force, the physical pressure of the crowd; information, what the crowd acts on, like true directions or a false rumor; space, the actual standing area; and time, how long the incident takes, and processing rates.
Managing a crowd at this scale means constantly balancing those four variables. They actually use a formal disaster risk assessment model. The math is simple but critical. Risk equals hazard multiplied by vulnerability and exposure, all divided by risk management. Now, you can't remove the hazard here, right? The sheer volume of people will always be there. So you have to drastically dial up your risk management to compensate. They do this through a centralized communication center and a massive network of CCTV cameras monitoring pressure points and blind spots in real time. In practice, this high-level science translates into 4 incredibly rigorous steps executed flawlessly on the ground. Step 1 is metering. They only allow exactly 50 people per batch into certain bottlenecks. It's like a highly controlled valve. Step 2 is regulating how fast people move across their 3-story ramps. Step 3 is constantly, obsessively monitoring occupancies so the density never hits a critical threshold. And Step 4 is ensuring there are absolutely 0 architectural dead ends where someone could get trapped if panic suddenly breaks out.
And why be so strict about these steps? Because the physics are genuinely terrifying. At 3 square feet of space per person, involuntary touching begins. That's a psychological threshold where you start feeling boxed in. But if it drops below 2 square feet per person, the crowd ceases to be a group of individuals. It turns into what physicists call a fluid mass. Shockwaves can actually ripple through the crowd, and you can literally be swept off your feet and crushed without anyone even trying to push you. By metering the crowd and using all that new corridor space, they make sure pilgrims maintain about 5 square feet per person, keeping everyone firmly in control of their own bodies.
To enforce all this, they've got a super organized hierarchy. On a normal day, you've got about 100 dedicated personnel out there, from district police to special armed forces. But honestly, the most brilliant part is how they supplement this with civil defense and semi-trained community volunteers. The main job of these volunteers isn't to bark orders or push people around. Their entire psychological objective is simply to keep the crowd calm and assured. They handle the information part of that FIST model we talked about, stopping the anxiety that leads to panic before it even starts.
All right, part 4. Rejuvenating River Kshipra, the ecological lifeline. So we've solved the spatial and human bottlenecks, right? But what about the ecological one? This brings us to the ultimate paradox of Ujjain. The Kshipra River, affectionately known as the River of Salvation and revered in ancient texts, is dying. It's a rain-fed river that, in recent years, essentially stops flowing just a couple of months after the monsoon ends. So how on earth do you sustain a river expected to spiritually cleanse millions of people when it's physically running out of water? When you look at the environmental strain placed on this relatively small river during peak festivals, it's just staggering. Massive encampments line the banks, millions of people step into the waters. The pollution and the biological load are off the charts. Planners realized pretty quickly that all the crowd management in the world wouldn't matter one bit if the sacred river itself turned into a dry, polluted ditch. Their solution? Absolutely audacious. It is an engineering marvel. As the first phase of a massive 8,000 crore rupee river linking project, they are literally using giant electrical pumps to lift water from the massive perennial Narmada River and piping it directly into the source of the Kshipra. They are artificially keeping this sacred river on life support through sheer, undeniable technological willpower. It's wild.
Between these colossal hydrological interventions, literally pumping lifeblood from one river to another, and dedicated pollution control plans to clean the banks, the city is fighting tooth and nail to restore the river. We're talking modern bridges, aeration fountains, and massive riverside infrastructure, all built to ensure that the river can survive the exact people who travel thousands of miles to worship it.
And that brings us to the real core tension of this whole explainer. As we build massive 47-hectare corridors, apply the complex physics of crowd dynamics, and literally pipe water across landscapes to link rivers, we are absolutely ensuring survival. We are keeping millions of people safe. But I want to leave you with this provocative thought. In our quest to engineer the perfect, frictionless, and completely safe pilgrimage, how do we make sure we don't accidentally engineer out the ancient, raw soul of the sacred experience? Finding that delicate balance between the science of survival and the spirit of devotion is going to be the true challenge of the future. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.